Hello, this is Pastor Steve today with your message of hope. And our message today is going to be a reflection that I had this morning when I was in prayer in the sanctuary at 7 a.m. And also about a historical figure that one of our members shared with me about after the service on Sunday. And so as I was praying this morning, that came to mind that this gentleman had shared after the sermon about Dr. Benjamin Rush. And he felt like my sermon, which was talking about not having our minds captured by narratives, competing narratives in the world, but to stand firm in the truth. He said, "You're a Christocrat." And I said, "What in the world is a Christocrat?" And he said, "You're not a Republican or a Democrat, you're a Christocrat, which means you follow Christ." And I thought, okay, I'll accept that as a strong compliment. And he shared with me, he sent me some information about Dr. Benjamin Rush. Dr. Benjamin Rush is a person that we should know more about from American history. I mean, the things he's most famous for was being Surgeon General of the Continental Army, signer of the Declaration of Independence, co-writer of the Pennsylvania State Constitution, the founder of Dickinson College. Oh, and by the way, the father of American psychiatry. But he really distinguished himself as a very devout follower of Christ. In fact, he helped Richard Allen develop the church, the African Methodist Episcopal Church, so that there would be a church for African Americans here in the United States. So Dr. Rush, very distinguished man, and claimed the title of Christocrat. He was a follower of Christ. He served under Presidents Washington, Adams, Jefferson, and Madison. So he had no problem serving under presidents. In fact, he served under presidents from 3 different parties and would say, I've been accused of being an aristocrat and a Democrat. I'm neither. I'm a Christocrat, because he said, the God who made us, no government can satisfy the things that we need. Only God can satisfy us in that way. And so he was willing to work under whomever, because he never had the illusion that one party or the other would lead us to the promised land. Always he understood the limitations of human beings and human organizations in the face of what we need in life, and only Christ could carry us there. So I was praying this morning and thought about this and thought about the information that Rob shared with me. And I said, God sort of revealed to me that we are to live not for the present, but in the present. But as we live in the present, we live for eternity. And the difference between living in the present and living for the present, we live in the present. We participate in the things that we need in the present moment. We vote. We participate in civic organizations. We go to work. But we don't live for these things, because these are temporary things. They're here today and gone tomorrow. We live for eternity. And ultimately, somebody that lives for the present will justify things in their minds that are not beneficial for eternal purposes. And they'll say, well, we're in a present crisis, and therefore, blah, 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 blah. And as I was praying, the figure that came to my mind that personifies the foolishness of this is Esau. And we know the story. Esau came in, he'd been hunting for several days and hadn't eaten. And there's his brother Jacob making that pot of stew. And he says, Esau, would you like some stew? And Esau says, I'm famished. I'd love some stew. And Jacob says, sell me your birthright. And Esau, to his shame, said, well, what good is this birthright to me right now? I'm starving. Sure, you can have it. And the Bible says, thus did Esau despise his birthright. In other words, he's a fool because he gave away something that was eternal for something that was very temporary. He'd be hungry again the next day, but that birthright would have been his for his whole life. And so when we get caught up and fixated in the things of today, it's good to remember that we don't live for today. We live in today, and we handle our business in today. But we live and we make our decisions ultimately on what is good for eternity. And Benjamin Rush understood that, and what a life well lived he had, and how he was able to use his giftedness as a physician, as a psychiatrist, as an educator, as a developer of churches, and someone who cared for the African Americans in this country, as somebody who had obviously political understanding. He wrote the state constitution along with James Wilson of Pennsylvania. So he was able to use all of his gifts because he understood that he was doing those for Christ, and doing that for the Lord. He was able to be such a blessing across the board to many, many different kinds of people. So you too are followers of Christ in this way. You may not have all the skills Benjamin Rush has. Certainly I don't, but we can use the gifts we have to benefit people of all different political persuasions, all different ethnicities and races, all different backgrounds. We can be the light of Christ, just as Dr. Rush was. We can be a Christocrat. And that is certainly good news for us for today.